Welcome to the Find My Catalyst podcast. This podcast is designed to help you find your catalyst, that nudge to help you take the next step and start doing the work you were meant to do. That work, whether it's in the context of how you make money, so business, family, the people close to you, or self. We all have work that we need to get done, and sometimes we need a catalyst to find it. So this is one of the Thursday or Friday, and today it's Thursday editions of the podcast where I'll either reflect on the theme of the week or answer some questions. And there were a couple of questions out there that I thought were pretty interesting. There's actually 4 of them that I thought were pretty interesting that came up this week that I thought might be good for this. And if any of this ever feels lectury, it's because it's one-on-one and I'm talking to you directly. That's the intention. It should never feel lectury. It should feel more conversational. And periodically I may ask a question that will feel a bit rhetorical because there's nobody else in this room with me but you. So if I ask a question, that question is really intended to be a speed bump in the conversation, something for you to reflect on. I never intend that anybody is going to listen to every one of these episodes. I'm hopeful, though, that you can find the episode that you need to listen to at any point in time. And that's why we continue to do this. So on Mondays, you can expect guests. And then on this either Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, depending on schedule, you'll expect something like this. As a reminder, I go live on LinkedIn like we're doing right now, live on YouTube like we're doing right now. And then I will share an edited version as a podcast episode that'll go live probably in the next 24 to 48 hours. So let's get to it. One of the comments that I get a lot, and I heard this again this week in a conversation, I need practical, not theoretical. I need practical, not theoretical. If you're out there looking at things and they feel a bit theoretical, that's on you. And what I mean by that being on you, everything is theoretical until you put it into practice, and then it becomes practical. After you put it into practice and you continue to apply it, then it becomes applied. And you can apply it over and over and over again. Everything is theoretical. The ability to drive a car sounds good in theory, up until the point that you turn the ignition on, put it into reverse, back it out of the driveway, and then start driving, or put it in forward and drive forward, whichever way you're going. So everything that you hear from others is theoretical until you get a chance to put that work into practice. So the next thing is trying to figure out, okay, how do I put this thing that we're talking about into practice? How do I make it apply to me directly? And there are a couple of ways that I like to do this. So I'm going to share a practice that I use. And you've seen this in some of the stuff that we're putting out in the updated version of the newsletter, which is the Learn, Think, Act. So learn, take in new information, think, reflect on it, and in the context of things that you already know, and then identify some specific steps, some things that you can take action on. So first, we learn the theory, we learn the idea, we learn the method, we learn the process, we learn how to do the work. That's the first part. We learn about it. We learn about it because that's the period where we want to become aware. So if there's something that you're trying to figure out, something new that you're trying to figure out, you are going to want to study theory. You're going to want to study some rules. You're going to want to study some laws. You're going to want to study some information. You're going to want to understand what's worked in the past. From there, you can start to ask a question. And the first question I would ask is, of this, what applies directly to the context that I'm working in right now? What can I apply directly to the thing that I'm working on? If someone is sharing some swing technique in baseball, and I try to apply it to golf, I might get myself in a little bit of trouble because the plane is completely different. The angle of the swing, where I'm expecting to make impact. Now, there are some things that are the same. And I played t-ball when I was a kid, and then played a little bit of Little League baseball. I'm not a baseball player. I have swung a bat before. I've swung an axe. I've swung a hockey stick. I've swung a golf club. And all of them work in a way, shape, or form. There's torque that is created, tension that's created that starts at the ground and works its way up to the point where you create velocity so that you can accelerate speed to impact on an object and move that object from wherever it is to where it needs to go. So the theory of the swing could be really interesting. You've then got to figure out, how do I apply it to the work that I'm doing? And that's on you. That's on you to take on those questions. And if you're struggling with those questions, ask. Say, I'm confused. How does this apply? Oh, okay. I think I heard this. What would you do here? Let's work through a specific scenario. And when you work through those specific scenarios, those theoretical things can become practical. There's a lot of noise out there in the market. And this gets into another question I'm going to get into, which we talked a little bit about yesterday, was this kind of reducing distractions in Whiteboard Wednesday. But to pull things back, I need practical, not theoretical. Everything is theoretical until you do it. Then it becomes applied, practical. My command of the English language is a little bit challenged, but everything is theoretical until you actually go do it yourself. Then you gain your own personal experience, and then you can make judgment on whether or not that work works for you. As you've heard me say before, you cannot reflect on what you are going to do. You cannot reflect on what you're going to do. You can only reflect on what you've done. Leverage your OODA loop. John Boyd, Dave Burke was on the podcast, talked about it, episode 85, if I remember right. Observe, orient, decide, act. Observe the information. Orient yourself relative to how it applies to you, and then make a decision whether or not you're going to do something with it. Then take action, and then reobserve, reorient, redecide, react. Looping processes in the feedback, looping processes, when it comes to feedback, are things that can help you. They can help with reflection, they can help with iteration, they can help with improvement. So the next question is, how do I maintain focus? So what's my way for maintaining focus? How do I do that? Well, the way that I like to maintain focus is through clarity. And what do I mean by that? Clarity around what is important to me, what is important to the other person I'm working with, what is important to the other group of people that I'm working with, the team, what is important to the teams of teams. I need to gain clarity in order to maintain focus. And with a lack of clarity, it is impossible to maintain focus. And I want you to think about focusing a light through a set of glasses or a prism. And if you take that light from the sun and you get it to like a needle point position, you could create fire. You could create some smoke. Then you create fire. And you're focusing the attention of the light onto that single spot. The only way that works, though, is if that piece of glass that you're using, that prism that you're using to focus the attention, the only way that thing works effectively is if it is clear. So you've got to clean it up first. So let's clean up ourselves first and figure out, hey, what's important to me? Why is it important? What's important to me? Why is it important? What's important to others? Why is it important? What's important to groups? Why is it important? What's important to us as an organization? Why is it important? Ask those questions. What and why? And then look at how your behavior reinforces the things that you say are important. Because if the behavior doesn't align, you've got to ask yourself this question. Do I have integrity? Is that thing really important or not? If you don't have integrity, your structure has weakness, you're taking on risk, and you may not be able to achieve the thing you want to achieve. Now, there's a lot of stuff that you want to get done. The importance of clarity, though, is on prioritizing the things that need to get done in a specific order. Once you've clarified the things that need to get done in a specific order, then you can take action. If you're struggling with figuring out what those things are and what order they should be taken, then be comfortable with the idea of being open about the struggle and know where you're going to test. Cool thing about sales being a thinking process, business being a thinking process, life being a thinking process. How are you thinking differently about your process? The cool thing about that is it's a thinking process where we get to apply different things to it and we get to test. So we get to experiment. And if we look at this as all one giant experiment, we start to detach from the outcomes and get really comfortable with the idea of, hey, how do I shrink things down, deconstruct like we talked about yesterday, design for next logical steps and start taking them. So if I want to maintain focus, the first thing I need to do is create clarity. If I'm struggling with creating clarity, then I've got a lot of work to do. The questions I like to ask there are what and why, what's important, why is it important? On the why it's important, I like to think about the impact that happens as a result, the risk that happens if we don't get there, those kind of things. And to gain additional perspective, I start to think about who has a problem that we're working on, who's impacted by the problem, and who cares about those who have or are impacted by the problem. And that's the application of a tool, that hexagon, the top side of that hexagon, the Mary Poppins approach to problem solving. What, why, who, and depending on context, you do it in different orders. If you're doing it on behalf of others, you're working on behalf of others, you go what, who, why. If you're doing it on behalf of self, you go what, why, who. Okay. There's a tool for all of these things. And the challenge is applying the right tool in the right context to do the right work, because that tool can create leverage. If, however, you're using the wrong tool in the right context, you are not going to create that leverage. And what you probably are going to do is just get frustrated. And if you don't know how to use the tool, you might get yourself into a situation where you get frustrated. So how do I maintain focus? I maintain focus through clarity. How do I gain clarity? It's by asking questions. And then how often do I do it? At a minimum every 90 days, resetting goals, objectives, rethinking things. I like to operate in the context of 2-week sprints. 90-day period ends up being 6 2-week sprints. And if you're interested in going pretty deep on this and applying some of that kind of work, the game plan might be a really good fit for you, which is goal setting and execution through clarity, focus, and doing the work. All right. One of the other questions that's out there is, this is kind of fits on both sides. And I think both of them are sales problems. They're sales challenges from the standpoint of sales being a problem solving effort. What if we are selling inside our organization, but we're unable to fulfill? What if we've sold things, like we're optimized on the sales side, but we're unable to fulfill inside the business? So that's one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is, what if I need to find a job, but I'm struggling doing it? How do I find my next job, whether it's a sales job or it's a installation job or it's a service job or it's a whatever job? How do I find my next job? So here's the cool thing that exists out there in the marketplace today. There are some organizations who are doing really well bringing customers in and generating revenue, and they're struggling on the fulfillment side of things. If you're one of those people who can help on the fulfillment side of things, find those companies that are struggling on the fulfillment side and see how you can partner up or work with them. If you are on the sales side and you're struggling on the fulfillment side, lean on your network. I sent a note out to a friend of mine, earlier today, to ask him for some help relative to his network. And you lean on this network to help get the message out there. I firmly believe the fastest way to generate revenue or hire employees or build a team is through referrals. And the reason why I believe that is, if people understand the problem that you solve for out in the marketplace, and you're aware of the problems that persist out in the marketplace, and you care about people, you can connect the dots between those people who have problems and those people who can solve the problems. And you can connect those dots. And that's what matchmakers do. That's what connectors do. That's what professionals like me do, and at least how I've built my business and have helped build businesses inside other organizations. And some of them are structured partnership programs. Those are really good. You identify a partner who's working with your customer in another way, shape, or form. You partner with them and they can provide faster access. So partnership programs can be really valuable inside organizations. The risk is there's a cost associated with it. You're paying a lot of money up front for faster results. And over the long term, you may not be able to reduce the amount that you're paying there, but that's the gamble that you're playing. That's part of the game that you're playing. So when it comes to hiring people, the thing that I like to do is first figure out, who do I know that knows the people that I'd like to know? Who are the people that are in your neighborhood that you can go out to, who might have connections? They might know where these folks hang out. It could be at the place that they all go drink coffee, or it could be the place where they all get gas in the morning, or it could be the place where they all go eat lunch, or it could be the place where they work out. There's so many different places where folks that you're interested in working with will congregate. The fastest way to figure out where folks congregate is ask your team. Hey, where would you go if you were trying to hire more people like you? Where would you go if you were looking for a job? Who'd you go to? When you ask those questions, sit back and listen. It's amazing what you will hear. The challenge is we don't ask the question. And the other challenge is we don't sit and listen to what we hear. And the other challenge is we think that people are going to make an assumption about something else associated with the question. So ask more questions, get out there, be careful about what type of question you're asking and what context, and make sure that that question has a specific objective. So when it comes to hiring, what I like to do is go identify some patterns on where the people that I'd like to hire or the people who fit a certain profile hang out. Where do they eat, sleep, and drink? Yes, this sounds like hunting. It also works in customer acquisition. Where do our customers eat, sleep, and drink? And there are some people who do not like the use of hunting terms in this context. My view, get over yourselves. Like, seriously, what are you trying to solve for? You ultimately would like to acquire more customers. Well, what's your process for acquiring customers? Work that process. So ask more questions, get your name out in the marketplace, and listen and learn, and think about the places that might not be typical. One of the coolest places to recruit these days, both recruit for solving specific problems inside your business, either hiring people full-time or hiring people fractionally like me, or on a project basis, or communities. When you ask a question in the community, you will find that there are a number of people who are willing to serve you, help you out. I tend to point people to podcasts that I've recorded, videos that I've recorded, tools that I've created. Typically, I'll ask a couple of questions first to make sure I have context so that I'm not just sending people in a given direction. You learn more with the questions you ask than with the statements you make. You learn more with the questions you ask than with the statements you make. And I firmly believe that you can help people more and you can influence more by asking better questions and listening to the answer rather than sharing your perspective or opinion, unless you get to that point where you need to share that perspective or opinion. So if you're in a situation where you're selling, but you're not able to fulfill, go out there and start asking questions. Ask your customers questions. Who are they working with that they would recommend? Who are they working with that might know someone who they could recommend? Be careful. You're not going to poach people from your customers. You don't want to hurt your customers. Ask the question. And when you ask the question, it's amazing what you might learn. Heck, you might even learn that maybe that wasn't the best question to ask and I need to change my questions up. So if you're struggling on the fulfillment side, start asking some questions, see what you can do to be part of the solution to help draw more people, draw more attention, draw more candidates into the candidate pool of people that you could hire. Then you are ultimately in that role, you're creating a lead list, demand generation on behalf of internal customers inside your organization, which really is the same process as doing it for external customers. It's just a different way, different perspective of looking at solving the problem and the lens at which we look at acquisition. So we've gone through from a practical to theoretical, I need practical, not theoretical perspective. Hopefully none of this is sounding theoretical, it's sounding a bit practical. There are a couple of questions that were in there. We talked a little bit about how do I maintain focus. I do that through lines of clarity. Then we talked about what if we're selling and we're unable to fulfill? How do we solve for this hiring problem? Well, on the flip side, what if I need to get a job? I want to get a new job. I would ask these questions and you just write these down. If you have a whiteboard, write them up on a whiteboard. If you want help, send me a direct message. I'm happy to help and share some tools with you that can help you on this side. What do I want? What do I want? It is a simple question, but it is very hard to answer because sometimes your wants and needs are going to completely shift. Well, I want to make money. Okay, cool. I'd like to work inside an organization where there's a leadership team that is focused on helping me grow as a leader. I want to work inside an organization where I trust that if I go out there and do my job, I'm going to be able to keep my job. I want to, whatever that thing is. What do I want? Be really clear on what you want. The next question I would ask is, what are the specific problems I want to solve in the marketplace? Whatever those problems are, what are the things that keep you up at night, that get you excited? When someone has a question about whatever, what is it that gets you excited? You got to get excited about something. And if you don't get excited about something, keep searching because there's something out there to get you excited about. And you might want to think about this question. When I'm doing this kind of work, what gives me energy? What's the kind of work that I could just keep doing over and over again? It just doesn't feel like work. And on the flip side, what's the stuff that sucks the life out of me? What sucks the life out of me? What just draws energy away? What drains me? What gets me frustrated? If you know those answers, what do I want? What problems do I want to solve? What gives me energy? What sucks the life out of me? Then you'll be in a position where you start to think about this question a little bit better. Who do I want to serve? What are the roles of people that I want to serve? I've been fortunate enough to operate in the learning and development space for a number of years, revenue space for a number of years, emerging tech space, enablement tech space for a number of years, now construction and automotive. I've been fortunate to work across a number of different industries. I like serving people. Well, I like serving specific people. I like serving people who are working on tough challenges, who are drawn to solving those tough challenges and know that there's a solution out there, but they're struggling with getting there. And I kind of rolled something out there yesterday. What if we move from what if to what's next? Those are the kind of people that I want to help, that I like working with. The ones who will do the work, not the ones who will sit and complain about the same things over and over again. The complaining about the same things over and over again, you kind of have to say, well, do we really want to solve for that? And if so, or if not, then okay, well, let's have a conversation around it so we can keep people focused. And I think that focus is critical. Like, let's know what our jobs are, know what the jobs to be done are so that everybody can go out there and do them. And then understand what the risks are so that everybody knows where we need to invest a little bit further in other areas. But if I know what problems, I know what I want, I know what problems I like to solve, I know what gives me energy, what sucks the life out of me, and who I want to serve. 5 really, really simple questions to say out loud, but hard to work through. Then I can start to identify some patterns. And I can start to think about, in the hiring context, who are some of the companies that provide services to the people I want to serve? Who are some of the companies that solve for some of the problems that I like to solve for? And imagine if you get into one of those situations where the company actually solves for the problem you like to solve for and serves the people you want to serve. Well, now there's some magic that's in the air. The magic can happen. And if you identify 5 of those companies and you reach out to the person who is the leader inside the functional area where it would make sense for you to work, I guarantee that you will be able to get a conversation going with at least one of those leaders. Because I think the odds of you reaching out to 5 shit leaders is probably pretty low. And if you reach out to a good leader, that'll respond, especially if you respond in context. So that's the challenge I give you, is know what you want, know what you solve for, know what gives you energy, what sucks the life out of you, know who you serve. Identify 5 companies that fit that profile, that either service the people you want to serve or solve the problems you want to solve for. And then reach out to the functional leader in the area where you would fit best inside that organization and just ask them for some time. Say, I'm familiar with your company. I either use your product or I know people who use your product. I like what you're solving for. I have a couple of questions around how I could potentially determine if I'm the right fit inside your business or how I might be able to help. Come up with your own questions. Do that outreach. And if you do that for 5 companies and you do not get one conversation going, I will work with you directly on a coaching side for free until we do it. Because I've never gotten into a situation where someone has done that work and has not been able to get a conversation going. And maybe I'm just fortunate or lucky or surrounded by good people. Now, on the other side, if I know those things that you're looking for, then I can keep my eyes and ears out for you and potentially make some recommendations or referrals. So that covers the we're selling but unable to fulfill and hiring. And then the last piece, and I heard this it was a Phoenix Club call. I asked the group of people, I said, hey, look, Jacqueline and I are going to record some stuff for Scott Ingram's daily sales tips. What questions do you have? And we answered this question on there. And now I'm going to answer it from my perspective. I had a chance to answer some of it in that, and you'll see that in a daily sales tip. But the question was, how do I end a call? And I was shocked that was the question. Like I never really even thought about that. Like it never crossed my mind. And these are my own biases, my own preconceived notions. How do I end a call? The one that's a little bit more common is how do I start a call? How do I engage with people? How do I even get a call going? But how do I end a call? And I thought, that's awesome. And I already cursed once. I won't curse again. So how do I end a call? I end a call as soon as we've gotten to the point where we have hit on our objectives and have labeled out the desired next steps that we plan for. I will end a call early if we do that thing. So how do I end a call? I end the call first as soon as we're able to accomplish our objectives, or we get into a situation where it does not make sense for us to continue the conversation. And I had an experience once a number of years ago where I was doing a market feasibility call on behalf of a client, and we met with a regional vice president or senior vice president of R&D inside a large global company. I would say Fortune 50, at least Fortune 100. And the SVP was a little bit late. My key stakeholder, the person I had been working with, who was the chief operating officer in that division, was in there, and we were on the call, and we were talking for a couple of minutes, and then the SVP walked in about 7 minutes late, and you could just see automatically, based on his nonverbal, something was going on. And I went into my thing. I asked my questions. I said, "So, when talking about X, what do you think about?" Or when thinking about X, what comes to mind? And this is, again, market feasibility. The SVP looks up at the camera. This is all in Zoom at the time, or it was probably Zoom. I don't think it was Teams, but looks up at the camera and goes, "What is this call all about? What are we doing here?" And I was like, "Oh, crap. Somebody mismanaged expectations. I mismanaged expectations. There was not a clear expectation with that SVP about what we were doing, what the intent of the call was." So I said, "This is a market feasibility discussion around a product that we're going to market with, and I've got a couple of questions." And again, I could see from the nonverbal that this was just not the day to do that. So I said, "It looks like you've got a lot of things going on. It looks like our expectations were a little bit off here. Let me have a follow-up conversation with the person who we're talking with, Chris, the COO. Let me have a follow-up conversation. We'll get this thing rescheduled. Thank you." And we ended the call right there. And then I had the conversation with the COO, and he said, "Thank you." He said, "I'm sorry that's how that happened. We'd gone through I believe there were some layoffs and reductions that had to happen earlier in the day. And it was just one of those days where it was not a good day for that person. I could have sat there and forced the conversation because I had my own agenda and gotten absolutely nowhere. Instead, I built a better relationship with the COO because I was situationally aware, and we were able to move forward in a different direction. So how do I end a call? It freaking depends. What I want to do is first see if we're not aligned on the call, then I end it quickly. I don't want to waste anybody's time. And I'll usually say something like, "Hey, it doesn't seem like we're aligned on this. Am I missing something?" No, whatever. And then we wrap things up. In that instance, there are not any next steps that we're highlighting. Second way that I like to end a call, and this is a little bit better, is we've accomplished what our aim was. I typically will go in from a call planning perspective. You've seen me talk about this, and I apply it. It's practical. I have 3 desired next steps going into any call. Those next steps might be an introduction to somebody. It might be that someone is going to do something on their end, and it might be that I'm going to deliver something, or we're going to schedule another call, whatever those next steps are. But I design around those next steps. And if we hit on those next steps and do that early, then say, look, we've hit on everything that we had said we were going to talk through. We've got clear next steps. If there is anything else, here's another 10 minutes back. So that would be one way that I end a call. In that instance, I'm clarifying what I heard and what those next steps are, and getting an alignment on those next steps. A lot of people will talk about mutual action plan, and I think mutual action plans are kind of BS. We talk about mutual action plans, but then we don't give people the tools on how to build them and how to effectively manage calls, to project manage the deals that we're working on with a customer. Feels more like, hey, I'm going to give you a piece of paper that you're going to sign off on, and because you signed off on it, now we're all going to move forward. Come on, let's set expectations and execute against those expectations. Agree to the desired next steps and then execute on those things. The reason why 3 are important to me is because if I can own 2 of the 3, I can deliver the first one pretty quickly. Then when I deliver the second thing that I own, I can use that to hold the person accountable on the other end to doing their thing. And that's what project management is. It's building a plan, clarifying responsibilities, calling people to action, and then holding them accountable. So I always have next steps. And the other thing that I do is I tend to keep my notes using colored markers. And I'll use a black marker for general notes. I'll use a red marker for next steps. I'll use a green marker for things that are interesting, but I don't want to get into now because it'll take us too far away from the discussion. And then I use a blue marker for anything else that's out there. So 4 questions. Let me know what you think. Was this valuable? Should I do this kind of stuff again? Do you have any, if you have questions, send them to me and I'm happy to answer them. I'll limit these to about 3 to 4 questions each week. And if you want me to keep you anonymous, I will keep you anonymous. If I pull it from stuff that I'm seeing and didn't get approval from someone, I will also keep those anonymous. And if you want me to name you and share some of your story and get your name out there, then I'm happy to do that as well. If you know somebody who would enjoy this conversation, get value out of it, please share it with them. Let me know via LinkedIn or Twitter. Comments on YouTube help too. Sales is a thinking process. Business is a thinking process. Life is a thinking process. How are you thinking differently about your process? Thank you.